Funding for this edition of State of Affairs with Steve Adubato has been provided by Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey. Here when you need us most, now and always. University Hospital. One goal, one passion. Every patient, every time. New Jersey Sharing Network. The Healthcare Foundation of New Jersey. The Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. NJM Insurance Group, serving New Jersey's drivers, homeowners, and business owners for more than 100 years. The Northward Center. MD Advantage Insurance Company. And by Suez North America. Promotional support provided by Meadowlands Chamber, building connections, driving business growth. And by New Jersey Monthly, the magazine of the Garden State, available at newsstands.
Welcome, I'm Steve Adubato to a very compelling, important, remote program, and we kick off with a good friend who's wrote an extraordinary book, an important book, a book you really need to read. It's called Live Like Sean, and the subtitle is Important Life Lessons from My Special Needs Son. Our good friend TJ Nelligan wrote this book together with Teresa DiGeronimo, who's also a good friend. Hey, TJ, good to see you, buddy.
It's an honor to be here, Steve. Good to see you again.
So I'm not going to assume that people know exactly who Sean was and what happened. Well, TJ, share with us, because I'm too close to this story.
Yeah, Steve has known my son for over 20 years. And I think it's the message in this book is really to live like Sean. When I wrote his eulogy, I came up with little anecdotes and stories, and I came up with the term live like Sean. Not when it's easy, not when it's convenient, but every day. And that meant being kind to other people, not rushing through your day like a type A personality and thinking about the next thing on the agenda. We always think it's a destination. He had gratitude. He couldn't spell gratitude, but he lived it every single day. And someone like me and you that have type A personalities and we're running the race, the problem is when you get to the goal, you move the goalposts. So you're never happy because you never get there. And the first 10 years I was in college sports, I realized looking back, I didn't have any pictures, any memories, because I was just rushing to get to the next goal. And then the last 15 years with Nelligan Sports, with Sean working at the company, and we represented colleges and universities and built a great company, I realized by living like Sean, it was a journey. And so I took each day, be present with the person you're with. Don't look over your shoulder to see if there's someone more important to talk to. Spend that quality time with the person you're with at that moment.
By the way, TJ, not only a great, successful entrepreneur, but the former chairman and CEO of the 2014 Special Olympics USA Games. Sean passed away on Father's Day a couple of years ago. And we were there at the service recognizing Sean, and TJ moved over 1,000 people by what he said. And the fact that he was able to do what he did, how he did it, was extraordinary. Why did you say what you did that day about Sean, who we're blessed to know? And then how soon after did you decide about the book?
Well, I think I realized since he was about 19 and he passed away at 29, I realized he was an extraordinary human being. His mom, Maggie, and his two sisters, Maura and Megan, always said he was an angel on earth. He was always happy every day. He didn't worry about past decisions, future decisions. We never left a sporting event early. And, we always said that inspiration can come from the most unlikely places. So his sisters always said, we thought we would have to protect Sean and teach Sean about life. And the fact is, he taught all of us more than we could ever teach him. And, the funny part about the book, as you know, I got done with the eulogy and Steve came up to me and hugged me and said, "That was great. That's the outline for your book." And I said, are you out of your mind? A book? And then, you know, you got me in touch with Teresa DiGeronimo, who's my co-writer. And I said, you know what, I'm going to do this. It was therapeutic. I cried more than I laughed. But at the end of the day, this was a great message. And I figured, we'll print 200 books. We'll give them to his cousins and his teammates and his coaches. And then it took on a life of its own. And you know, it came out January 19th. And by the 23rd, it was #2 on new releases on the Kindle. So it was absolutely amazing. And, you know, Sean loved to see his teams in the top 25, and the book got into the top 25 one day. So I think he's laughing at me. And, you know, he would say, stop, I don't have a book. And I tell everybody, it's not my book. I'm just the messenger. This is Sean's book, Sean's story. And I'm the messenger here, just like I have been for 20 years involved with Special Olympics through Sean.
You know, all the years we were together at sporting events or golfing, charity situations that TJ was involved in, Sean was always there, right, with me, you, our good friends, Nikki Matarazzo and Andy Duke. Sean, always a smile, number one, right?
Right.
Always hugging. Always wanted to connect with people on a very personal level, regardless of who they were. There's a great story in here about, tell me about the senator that was swimming in the pool, real quick. Max?
So we were on vacation, and Sean, in those days, he was like 14 years old. He'd get up at 5:30 in the morning. So I told his mother, I'll take him down to the pool. We found a bagel, we got a juice, and there's a guy swimming in the pool with no legs and one arm. And I'm looking all around at the beautiful weather, and the guy shimmies his way out onto his wheelchair by himself. And I realize that's Senator Max Cleland from Georgia, who was in the Clinton administration later.
That's right.
And Sean yells out to him like he does to everybody, hey, buddy, you're a great swimmer. That was awesome. And he wheels right over to us, and we end up having a discussion. Sean and Max are talking for 5 minutes. I'm not even in the conversation. And he says, oh, Max, this is my dad, TJ. And I said, hi, Senator, nice to meet you. Wanted to let him know I know who you are. Then I forget all about the story. He asked Sean, can you wheel me up to the elevator, even though he didn't need any help? And he made him feel important. We're in the lobby that night for dinner, and I had forgotten all about the story. And we're there with his sister, some cousins, and his mom and my parents. And all of a sudden, here comes Max Cleland with a suit and tie on and a bunch of aides around him. And he sees Sean, and he points to his people to take him straight to us. And as they're on their way toward us, my father hits me and goes, isn't that senator from Georgia? And I go, yes. And he has no idea what's going to happen next. Max comes over and he's like, hey, my buddy Sean, how are you, my man? And we started talking to him for a little while. And then when we got done speaking with Max, we go to get a cab, and we needed 2 cabs. And the valet comes in, and there's a line of 20 people. And he goes, hey, Sean, he gets, how you doing, buddy? What do you need? We're going to dinner. How many people? Oh, all these people. So he yells at the other valet, get 2 cabs for Sean over there in the front. And my dad said, wow, I've seen it all. This kid's the most powerful person in the family.
True. And it happened. And in this book, by the way, here it is again, Live Like Sean by TJ Nelligan with Teresa Foy DiGeronimo, Important Life Lessons for My Special Needs Son. TJ is very raw and very real in this book, and describes when he and Maggie first realized that Sean was challenged in this way. And gratitude was not a word that was in your vocabulary, T?
No, in the beginning, I think that's the hardest part for parents, because you find that you take home what you thought was a perfectly healthy baby boy. You have hopes and dreams for your first child. And then a couple of years later, we find out he has all these issues through one of the top neurologists in the country. And from there, you go to physical therapy and speech therapy and doctors and medicines, and it's torture. And then there becomes a day when he got into his teens where you realize his dreams weren't shattered. My dreams were shattered. He's perfectly happy to be alive. He's the happiest guy in the world. He doesn't know what he can't do. He only knows what he can do. Yeah. You know, he couldn't ride a 2-wheel bike, so we got him a 3-wheel bike. He became really good at basketball, loved sports, loved his teammates, and hugged everybody. And that's the thing I miss the most.
You know, to our friends, Andy and Nikki, and also Tommy Varga. I want to mention Tommy Varga is a great friend as well. So many people that Sean touched. Hey, T, let me ask you this. In the minute we have left. In the middle of COVID, with everyone struggling to focus on what we can't do, what we don't have, what do you think? And we miss Sean so much, you and Maggie more than anyone else. What do you think Sean would say about this?
Well, I don't think he'd get that he can't go to sporting events. He can't hug anybody. It would be torture for him. But, you know, the lessons in the book are simple. It's especially in this time where our country's so divided. You know, he was accepting of everybody. He knew that everybody just came in a different packaging. And he was kind to everybody. You know, he was persistent. He was present in the moment. And he was just an angel on earth, like his sisters always said.
Yeah. TJ Nelligan, a friend, entrepreneur, a dad, an extraordinary author. And I told you then, the day of the service for Sean, I'll tell you again. You're making a difference, my friend. Thank you, TJ.
Thank you, Steve. Been honored to be on with you. Thank you.
As always, I'm Steve Adubato. That's TJ Nelligan, and we'll be right back.
To watch more State of Affairs with Steve Adubato, find us online and follow us on social media.
We are honored to be joined by Andrea McChristian, who is Law and Policy Director at the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Steve. Thanks so much for having me.
You got it. By the way, check out our website, which you'll see up there for past interviews we've done with the great Ryan Haygood, who leads the organization that Andrea works with. Part of our series, Confronting Racism, see the graphic up there as well. The 2021-2022 action agenda for racial disparities in the state of New Jersey, particularly for minority youth. Andrea, what is it and why does it matter now more than ever?
Sure. So I think, Steve, that's such an important question in this time where both nationally, we're seeing so much racial unrest and injustice highlighted by the recent insurrection at the Capitol. But here in New Jersey, we're also seeing that this is a critical election year with every single seat in the New Jersey legislature up, as well as the governor's seat. And so while many have rallied around the proclamation that Black Lives Matter, at the Institute, we really wanted to put actions behind those words by creating our 2021 through 2022 action agenda to make Black lives really matter in New Jersey. Because we want to make sure that the people who want our vote this key election year are responsive to issues that are of the utmost importance to communities of color here in the state.
Andrew, let's identify the top two or three and we'll continue to talk. Go ahead. Those issues are?
Sure. So we think closing the racial wealth gap is an issue of the utmost importance. Here in New Jersey, we have one of the starkest racial wealth gaps in the country, with a white family making $352,000 median net worth, highest in the country, but only $6,100 for Black families. So what are we looking at to close that racial wealth gap? We're looking at baby bombs. That's something that Governor Murphy has prioritized in the past that we're working with legislators to advance now. We're looking at guaranteed income programs. Here in Newark, they had a guaranteed income task force, and other cities throughout the state are also starting up their own pilots. We're looking at expanding home ownership opportunities, particularly for Black communities, since we know there is that divide within home ownership between Black and brown communities and white communities in the Garden State. And we're also looking, following the national level as well, canceling student loan debt. We know that's one of the major drivers of the racial wealth gap, in addition to home ownership. And we want to make sure that people who are already having their wallets stretched during the COVID pandemic don't have to worry about student loan debt as well.
Since you mentioned the COVID pandemic, talk about disparities, racially based disparities as it relates to the delivery of healthcare, A, and B, this COVID pandemic that we are facing, but the African-American community facing much more deeply than others.
Sure, Steve. And so kind of as I highlighted, New Jersey is home to some of the starkest racial disparities along a bunch of different issue areas. We have the highest Black to white infant mortality rate in the nation. We have the highest Black to white youth incarceration and adult incarceration disparity rates in the country. Starkest racial wealth gap. Use of force is disproportionate against Black people. Hospitalizations, everything kind of comes to a head in the Garden State. And so there were already huge racial inequities pre-existing before the COVID-19 pandemic, which has just exacerbated them. Because as we know, Black and brown communities tend to be essential frontline workers disproportionately, tend to live in more crowded housing, are subject to the digital divide at more extensive levels than their white counterparts, and also don't have access to the same adequate health care. There was an article that came out just today in the New York Times that was talking about here in Newark, where which is over 80% Black or Latino,
Right.
1 in 342 residents has died from virus-related complications. And so we're seeing the COVID-19 pandemic feeding upon the racial disparities that already existed to disproportionately harm these communities even further. And so, oh, go ahead.
Good. Well, let me just try to follow up on that. Mm-hmm. I've mentioned the Tuskegee experiment many times, okay? And again, I keep referring people to it, but tell me if my interpretation is correct. During the 1930s, there were a series of experiments that the government sponsored where African-American men it was an experiment around syphilis. They were given syphilis. They were guinea pigs. And that, in many ways, has created much, not alone, but much of the distrust of the healthcare system in this country. Is that an accurate interpretation of it?
Sure. I think, Steve, to your point, distrust of the medical community because of Tuskegee and a number of other just generational impacts has led to distrust being one of the factors in why kind of the healthcare distribution is the way it is within Black and Brown communities. But in addition to that, something that we do need is data. Data really serves as the foundation of kind of everything that we need to develop systems, policies, practices to, one, break down that distrust and distribute as effectively as possible. And here in New Jersey, we have incomplete data. The data that we have shows that, yes, half of those vaccinated have been white and very few have been Black or Latino, but that's incomplete data. Something that we've also pushed the state for in partnership with coalition members is we were able to successfully advocate for New Jersey releasing data publicly on COVID-19 deaths, hospitalizations, cases by race and ethnicity. But the state has failed to release that information at the local level, at the zip code level, which is exactly where we need it. But
sorry for interrupting, Andrew. As we tape this program, the 2nd of February, it's not released. Is there a sense that it's going to be released, say, in the next month, 90 days, whatever, next 30 to 60, 90 days? Or is it just not going to be known?
We've gotten no indication. We've asked, we've had advocacy tools. We've reached out to the state to say, when are we getting this data? And we've been met with a number of different explanations, but have not been given the data that we need that is required by the law.
Let me ask you this, in the time we have left, about a minute left. In spite of everything that you just said, which matters a lot, do you encourage people in the African-American community to get the vaccine?
Sure, we encourage people to do the research they need to feel comfortable with taking the vaccine if that's what they choose to do. But we think that what is critical is making sure that everyone has the information they need, everyone understands where they can get the vaccine, and to know that there is at least an attempt by the state to break down that mistrust, which has been built over so many different generations.
Yeah. Real quick, I shouldn't do this because I have to go to the throat. January 6th, the insurrection at the Capitol. Do you believe a significant portion of that part of it was racially motivated?
It was white supremacy personified, where there was a challenge to a legitimate election, legitimate results. And instead of dealing with it in a fair democratic way that this country would welcome, there was an insurrection at the Capitol with white supremacy as the foundation.
And the other part of that foundation is that many of those folks believe that the disproportionate number of those votes they said that didn't count or were stolen or cheated are people who are Black. That's just a fact. Andrew, I want to thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. Our best to Ryan and the entire team at the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice. You honor us by being with us. Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you so much, Steve.
You got it. I'm Steve Adubato. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
To watch more State of Affairs with Steve Adubato, find us online and follow us on social media.
We're now joined by Dr. Thomas Cavalieri, who is the Dean of the Rowan University School of Osteopathic Medicine. Good to see you, Doctor.
Well, good to see you too, Steve. Thank you for inviting me.
You got it. Doctor, this is part of our ongoing series on vaccine awareness, what people need to know. Question, what is Rowan University's role in this vaccine rollout, if you will?
Well, here at Rowan University School of Osteopathic Medicine, the Stratford campus of Rowan University, we actually have developed the Rowan University Vaccination Center here. So Rowan University is helping to support one of the mega sites at the Rowan College of South Jersey, right, which is pretty much run by the Gloucester County Department of Health. But Rowan University's actual vaccination center is here on our campus. And go ahead.
I'm sorry, Doctor, there's a little delay here. We're taping on the 2nd of February. This will be seen after. Lots of changes having a lot to do with vaccine supply, right? We're actually taping this in the middle of a pretty heavy snowstorm. We're praying that weather gets better, but that's not the only issue. Let me ask you this. From your perspective, Dr. Cavalieri, how much is what you and your colleagues are doing at Rowan based on the vaccine supply?
Well, it's pretty considerable because obviously, Steve, you can't vaccinate people without the supply. So here on Rowan University's vaccination center, we're considered a large site. So in the eyes of the Department of Health, whom we've been working with closely, Commissioner Persicelli. And essentially, as a large site, we administer between 400 and 500 vaccinations per day, Monday through Friday. And I will tell you, our experience thus far we have not had a problem with supply. Now, I know nationally that's an issue. I know some other sites have had a difficulty, but we've been fortunate that we've been able to get the supply we need to meet the needs of the community we're serving, giving somewhere between 400 and 600 vaccinations per day.
So, Dr. Cavalieri, in the spirit of awareness, if you will, particularly for those who are confused, concerned, they don't know exactly what the facts are, your expertise is in the area of geriatrics, right? Geriatric medicine. My mom, who's watching, I know right now, never going to say my mom's age, but like a lot of others, wanted to, and she was fortunate enough to get the vaccine. Question: is there any issue for older people, say 75 plus, with the vaccine, or does it depend upon underlying conditions?
It's really both. As one ages, our immune system isn't as good as it used to be. This is well known. So as people age, their susceptibility to various infections increases. So age alone is an independent risk factor to develop COVID-19. Also, chronic conditions are of any age. So even if you're younger and you have diabetes, heart failure, kidney failure, those types of things, you're at higher risk.
And so let me ask you this, Doctor. Hold on for a second, Doctor. So sure. This was confusing to me. I have high blood pressure, but being managed. Is that by itself a potential issue?
I would say,
because I'm not alone. I'm not talking about myself. It's millions of people who have some degree of high blood pressure.
Right. I would say high blood pressure managed in and of itself is probably not put someone at a higher risk, but certainly diabetes, heart failure would, chronic kidney disease would. So there are certain chronic states that put someone at higher risk. So Steve, getting back to your other question with regard to the elderly, when you think of it this way, elderly people have increased risk simply because they're aging, but also we know that chronic diseases like the ones I mentioned, cancer, diabetes, heart disease, et cetera, they increase as people age as well. So it's a double effect. And that's why, for example, 8 out of 10 of the deaths that occur from COVID-19 occur in people over 65. It's really the composite effect of aging and chronic disease that come together to put the elderly at such high risk.
Real quick, and by the way, Rowan University, let me disclose as one of our higher ed partners supporting our healthcare and educational programming. Let me ask you this. Students at Rowan are actively involved, medical students. Talk about that. Got about 30 seconds on that, please, Doctor.
Yes, our medical students here at Rowan SOM are actively engaged in our vaccination center. In fact, I will virtually tell you their involvement in this center is critical to the center's success. And these students are caring, they're compassionate, they really want to make a difference. We call our program here Operation Save Lives. And I tell the students, every shot they give in an arm, they potentially saved a life. So they are so enthusiastic about this.
Doctor, before we wrap up, I need to ask you this. Again, taping on February 2nd, you'll see that. We always disclose when we're taping, it'll be seen after. And we don't know exactly how this plays out, but with the variants, to what degree do these multiple variants, more and more being identified in the United States, in New Jersey, and the country, to what degree does that concern you as it relates to what 1 or 2 shots, depending upon the vaccine you get, that it will cover it? Or is there a booster involved in your view?
You know, it's difficult to say for sure. It does concern me. These variants do seem to be able to transmit from one to another. That is of concerning. So far, we have every indication that our existing vaccines will be effective. However, there is that uncertainty whether that will continue. So it does concern me. At least for now, we're good, but there's concern about the future.
Important information. And by the way, we refer people to the state website, to the CDC website to get more information, because as these programs repeat, you will see that information up there, because things are changing quickly, not just by the week or the day, but by the hour and the minute. Dr. Thomas Cavalieri, Dean of the Rowan University School of Osteopathic Medicine, we thank you very much. And to the students down there and everyone involved in this initiative, thank you for everything you're doing every day. Thank you, Doctor.
And thank you for having me, and thanks for the good work you're doing to get this information out to the community. That's essential. Thank you.
We're all in this together. Thank you, Doctor. I'm Steve Adubato. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation. Funding has been provided by Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, University Hospital, New Jersey Sharing Network, the Healthcare Foundation of New Jersey, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, NJM Insurance Group, the North Ward Center, MD Advantage Insurance Company, and by Suez North America. Promotional support provided by Meadowlands Chamber and by New Jersey Monthly.
I'm Miles, and this is what I work for. To be my best for them and for me, in body and in mind. I need a health insurer that helps me get the care I need for both, that has mental health professionals that I can talk to when I need to, because when I feel strong and secure, so do they. This is my life, and this is how Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey works for me.